Hello students, you're welcome in this session where we're going to discuss the diversity of organisms. So here we are going to study a lot of interesting things. We'll be talking about different animal species, how are they different from each other, what defines a species, and also what are the deciding factors that actually makes a particular species group of particular organism. What are the basic differences, what are the DNA level differences that can be seen in different organisms. So students, let's start with what is species. So for species, there are a lot of definitions that different biologists have given. But according to Charles Darwin, he wrote that no one definition has satisfied all the naturalists, because everybody thinks that something is still remaining in the particular definition. So there are a lot of definitions which actually define species. Now, the most general and most widely used definition for species is a group of organisms with shared traits, like they have similar kind of traits, and also they can interbreed in the wild. So they should be interbreeding in the wild. That basically means, so for example, if any two particular organisms, they can interbreed and produce a fertile offspring. Suppose for example, this is a female and this is a male, and they both are interbreeding and producing offspring, which is also, it should also be fertile. Okay, so this can also reproduce further and produce more offsprings. So if this particular organism and this particular organism, they are interbreeding, so that defines that they both belong to same species. So this is what the most used definition is for species. Okay, now here there are some exceptions. For example, if you're talking about sexual reproduction, what about those species which reproduce through asexual means? So again, this definition is also not complete. So still a lot of definitions are available, and most of them have something that defines a species. So no one definition is exactly satisfying all of the biologists. So a very specific example is, here we can see two different jaguars. Okay, and they both are considered same species. We can see morphologically. Morphology is what? Morphology is the external features. Whatever you are seeing from outside is the morphology of any organism. So here the morphology of this particular jaguar, it is yellowish white in color with black dots, and here this is a very dark blackish colored line. Sorry, not lion, it's a jaguar. Okay, and it's melanistic. That basically means it's a dark morph. That means it has a lot of melanin accumulated in the skin, but still both of them can interbreed in wild. So according to this definition, they will be called as the same species. But if we see them morphologically, they are looking very different. So still again there's a question mark that if this definition is very accurate in every condition. So now let's come forward. We will be discussing a lot of such things in this chapter. Now the next thing is here, what patterns are seen in diversity of genomes within and between species. So what are the patterns seen in diversity? Diversity means there are certain differences in the genetic material which actually differentiates two different species from each other. So if you talk about one species, there'll still be some differences in the genes. But if we're talking about two different species, that means that the DNA is different from each other to a greater extent. Okay, so the genome is the world of genetic information of an organism. So whole genetic information of an organism is stored in its genome, that is its DNA, and that is the total amount of DNA. So now genome vary across kingdoms of life in terms of structure, composition, association with proteins, location, size, number of chromosome. In what way does the genome within the species vary? So genome within a species vary from various aspects. Like if you're talking within a species, then there'll be different point mutations. So mutations actually accumulate in the DNA of a particular organism. After a long time, there'll be more differences that could be seen. So we will discuss this thing in detail in the chapter here. So here we have an example. Red-whiskered rat is one of the few identified polyploid animals. What is polyploid? So if we are talking about human beings, they are diploid. So if any particular organism has a single set of chromosomes, it is called as haploid. So we'll define it with N and it will be called as haploid. So N is haploid. If we're talking about 2N, so that is diploid. Now generally most of the species that reproduce by sexual means, they are diploid because one set of chromosome is contributed from father and mother both. So one set of chromosome is contributed from both of them, so that is why 2N is a diploid condition. Alright, if we're talking about polyploid, so that basically means it might be 3N, that is 3 sets of chromosomes, or 4N or 6N, like that. Okay, so these will be called as polyploid. Alright, so polyploid is more number of chromosomes. Like if there are 22 chromosomes in particular organism, so here 22 sets will be there, so total number of chromosomes will be 44, because one N is defining 22, so 2N will define 44. Here 3N will define what? It will define 66. That means the particular organism will have 66 chromosomes. If it's 4N, then it will be 88 chromosomes will be present in that particular organism if the haploid number is 22. Okay, so here this particular organism, this particular rat is polyploid, and it has highest chromosome number in any mammal. It is a mammal and it has the highest number of chromosome, that is 102. Its closest living relative, that is Optimus myimax. So this is another rat on the right. So this particular rat has 56 chromosomes in it. So here, if suppose this is 2N, then this is probably 4N, because the number of chromosomes have doubled. 56 chromosomes are present in this one. So in this, it's 102. So that condition is polyploid. Generally in animals, this polyploid condition is not seen. It is very, very frequent in plants, although in plants polyploidy is very, very common. Okay. So let's start with the first thing, that is variation between organisms as a defining feature of life. So any organism, individual, plant, or if you talk about animal or bacterium or any other living organism, they all have their genetic material, their DNA. So all the different variety of organisms, they have their own particular type of DNA, because of which they have different kind of features in them. For example, if we talk about differences between humans or trees that are growing 100 meters tall, or fungus that consist of network of narrow threads, so such kind of structures will be found in fungi. And there'll be bacteria that can grow in extreme conditions like volcanic pools where the temperature reaches up to 80 degrees Celsius, or they can also be found in other conditions where the conditions are very, very acidic, for example at pH below 2. In such conditions also bacteria can be found. So these extreme conditions can be tolerated by these particular organisms because of their structural formation. So all of them are different from each other, although they all have DNA as their genetic material, but the structure of DNA will be different in all of them. For example, even chimpanzees, which are considered the closely related to human beings, they also are different from us in many ways, we can see, right? So here we are talking about different species. Okay, if we talk about one single species also, then also you will find a lot of differences. Have you ever seen two people, like every single person has their own features, you can actually identify? So for example, if you have 40 classmates in your class, then you can easily identify looking at each one of them, although they all have same sort of nose and ear and eyes and hair and skin, so hands and legs, but still you can identify. That means even though they all are from the same species, humans, but still there are considerable differences, and that is because of certain mutations that actually happens in the DNA. Okay, now consider a very close example. For example, if we talk about monozygotic twins, so what are monozygotic twins? Let's understand that first. So basically, if you're talking about twins, they can be monozygotic or dizygotic. right? So monozygotic twins means after fertilization of egg and sperm, a single zygote has been formed, and if this particular zygote is divided into half and this particular half is actually growing separately into an individual, okay, into an individual, and this is growing into another individual. So here at this particular level where the first cell of the zygote is formed, if this particular sort of division takes place and both of them are actually developing into two different individuals, so this sort of twins are called as monozygotic, because single zygote has given rise to both these individuals. Now since this was a single cell, so definitely when the cell first divided, they both will have exactly same copy of DNA. Both of them will have same DNA. So this is a monozygotic. These will be monozygotic twins, okay, and they both will have exactly same DNA. So in the beginning when they'll be born, you will be able to see exact same babies, both of them will be very much same. But with time what you will observe is slowly and gradually, because of the external conditions, the environmental conditions in which they are living, the sort of habitats or the habits, you can say, the sort of habit they have eating and their habits of living, so they will be different, because of which slowly when they'll age you will be able to differentiate between both of them. So even monozygotic twins will have certain differences in their morphology, okay. So now such twins start out with the same genes, so they have started with the same genes, but they acquired differences through mutations, and because of the environment in which they develop is never identical. There'll be some differences in their environment in which they are growing or their habits. So because of that, after some time there'll be considerable differences between both of the twins. So the diversity of organism adds to its richness of the natural world and helps to make biology such a fascinating subject. So variation is also essential for future of life, because evolution by natural selection could not happen without it. So natural selection is the basis of development of new species, right? So let's understand here. So since I've told monozygotic twins, we will also talk about dizygotic twins. So basically what are dizygotic twins? Here different two eggs have been produced in a particular female, and both of them will get fertilized, and when they both will get fertilized with different sperms, they both will form two different zygotes, and they will actually form different two babies. So they will be called as dizygotic twins, which are not actually developed from a single zygote. They've developed from two different zygotes, okay. So there'll be considerable differences from the very beginning in the dizygotic twins, but monozygotic twins will look very much similar from the very beginning, okay. So let's come ahead now. Species as group of organisms with shared traits. So species which are a group of organisms, they'll have shared traits. That means if you're talking about species, they'll be very much similar. Their DNA structure will be, you can say, 99 point certain percent similar if you talk about two different individuals. So that much of similarity can be seen, but that point difference in their DNA similarity, that will also give such considerable differences that you can actually identify each person as a separate individual, okay. So they'll not look like exactly the same copy of each other. So if organisms are studied, it soon becomes obvious that each individual is a member of group with recognizable traits or characteristics. Okay, these group of organisms often have given name in a local language, especially they used by people. So if you're talking about people that you're using different things, so if you go 800 years ago, so there are certain group of individuals, Maoris, so they actually used tree ferns as which were growing on the forest, and they use these ferns to build their houses, and they recognize different types of ferns. So at that time also they recognized almost 7 types of different ferns, and they used to use them to build their homes. Now at that particular time, there were no system of identification or classification of particular species or any sort of organisms or plants. But from the 17th century onwards, biologists used the term species. Species term came into existence in the 17th century, and here the particular organisms which we could see seem to have shared traits, similar looking morphological organisms were grouped into similar species. So biologists have been naming, classifying species ever since. So Carl Linnaeus, who worked in the 18th century, he is the pioneer of research. So actually he is the one who seriously started the classification of organisms. And Linnaeus and his other biologist friends, they actually described particular species outer form and inner structure of typical members of species. This is known as morphology. So basically outer form and inner structure of typical members of species. So outer form means if you're seeing any particular organisms from outer side, so how do they look from outside is the outer morphology, and inner side their structure, if you cut open the particular organism and if you see their organs and their arrangement, it is called as the inner morphology. Okay, so that is the inner structure and outer form. So they both these things were called as morphology of that particular organism. The idea of species is a group of organisms that share a particular outer form and inner structure is the morphological concept of species. So this was called as morphological concept of species. So morphologically they identified these organisms into a single species which were having same outer form and inner structure. Now if they were asked about the origin of species, that how these species might have originated, so in that time they did not have much knowledge about origin or anything. So what they thought was that it is the work of a creator. So they thought that the species, they have been created as such and there was no change that was brought into them. So they thought that each species was created from nothing. So all of a sudden certain particular the creator or the god have created a particular species as such as it looks at that day. Okay, and they remained unchanged after its creation. So when describing the morphology of species, each biologist believed they were looking at the evidence as a creator's work. But now this scenario has changed, and evolution is considered as the main source for origin of different species, because of which the origin of life have started from a single cell, and differences or the, you can say, evolutionary events have led to formation of so many variety of species that are present today on earth. Now let's come to binomial system of naming of organism. So since we have started studying different species, so there were very slight differences between two particular individuals, and you cannot keep them in single species. So that is why the scientists have derived the binomial system, in which they actually kept two particular things that were used. First was genus name, which is a broader categorization. So if morphologically they are looking very much similar, they'll be kept in the same genus. But still, for example, there are two particular plants, their leaf and their other structure is almost same, but their flower shape or color or flowers are very much different from each other. So they'll keep them in two different species. So genus will be same and species will be different here. So in the binomial system, two things are basically named. Okay, so for example, here is a Linnea borealis. So these two terms here, the first term will be the genus. Okay, so this will be the genus, which is a broader categorization, and borealis is particular species. Okay, so this actually defines the particular species that we are talking about. So first one is the genus name. Genus is a group of species that have similar traits. So if they have similar traits, they'll be kept under a similar genus. The second name is the specific name or the species name. So this species name is particular for a particular species. So there are various rules about binomial nomenclature. Now this is important and this might really come in your examination. So be very careful while understanding this. So the genus name begins with an uppercase letter. So it always begins with the genus name begins with the uppercase letter. So just like here we have an example. So Linnea borealis, we can see Linnea L is capital here. So the genus first letter is always a capital letter and species first letter is a small letter. Okay, species name begins with a lowercase small letter. In typed or printed text, a binomial is shown in italics. So it is generally shown in italics just like it has been shown over here. So if you're typing a certain particular genus, the binomial, according to the binomial nomenclature, you will write the particular name in italics. Okay, after binomial or genus name has been used once in a piece of text, it can be abbreviated to the initial letter of the genus name for the full species name, for example L. borealis. So for example, if you are writing a particular paragraph or a paper for this particular species and you're talking about the features of Linus borealis, so if you have mentioned the complete name in the beginning, then you can actually write the short form of this. So everywhere you need not write the Linia borealis. L. borealis will be understood that we are talking about this particular species. So now let's come to biological species concept. So here, according to morphological species concept, a species is an unchanging group of organisms with clear differences in external form and internal structure between it and other species. However, this does not fit with the concept of evolution by natural selection proposed by Charles Darwin in 1857. So here, so if you're talking about morphological species concept, so the particular species is unchanging group of organism with clear differences where we can see the outer form and internal structure differences. But since the concept of evolution by natural selection, it was proposed by Charles Darwin, so biologists look into new concept to describe species. So again, they'll have to find a new concept of species. It proved extremely difficult to find a definition that fits all the context. So far there are 30 different definitions that have been suggested for species, but still not all the biologists are satisfied with any one of them. Okay, so the biological species concept defines the species as a group of organisms that can successfully interbreed and produce fertile offspring. So they should be producing fertile offspring. If there is breeding between two different organisms and infertile offspring is being produced, then in that condition it will not be called as a group of same species. Okay, so this concept explains how a group of individuals can exist and coherent unit. The members of species interbreed and therefore share genes in a gene pool. So what is a gene pool basically? So if you see a population of human beings in this particular area, so there'll be many humans that will be present and all of them will have different traits. Somebody will have black eyes, somebody will have blue eyes, somebody will have brown eyes. So the different color of eye genes will be considered all the type of genes that are present in all of them. So whether it is a gene for nose shape or hair color or eye color. So if you consider this particular area population and if you take all the genes, all the different possible genes that are present in all these population, this will be called as a gene pool of this particular population. Okay, so the different, so for example, suppose this individual gets married to this individual and they both will have different traits, like for example their eye color or hair color or their height, they might be different from each other, but when they will produce a offspring, their kid will have certain properties from the father and certain properties from the mother, so they will have shared characters. So similar ways, wherever you're talking about a species, they interbreed and therefore they have shared genes in a gene pool. Okay, so the biological species concept, it works well in some group of organisms. For example, allium consists of hundreds of species. So allium is a particular, you can say allium is a genus which will have a lot of species under it, and onion or you can say garlic, they all belong to this particular genus. Okay, now here this particular genus will have a lot of species. So there are around 600, okay, no, not 600, hundreds of species. So it includes onion, garlic and few interspecific hybrids that have been reported. So here we can see this example of allium. So there are two different species. One is Allium christophi on the left and this is Allium marcellani in the right. So this one and this one, these are two different species. So they both were interbred. So interbreeding was taken place between two different species. So this will be called as interbreeding between different species here. So such interbreeding will lead to formation of a new hybrid variety, which will have characteristics of this particular species as well as this particular species. So as a result of interbreeding between these two species, a new species, Allium globemaster, which is seen in the center, was produced. So now we can clearly see here the number of flowers is very less. Here also it's not as much, but here we can see a difference between these two and this one. So this is a hybrid variety, but this was again sterile. It could not produce its own offsprings further. So it was sterile, it was not fertile. So that is how generally most of the times it happens. It is very rarely seen that interbreeding between two different species can lead to offspring that are actually fertile. So this particular Allium globemaster, it was